trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat. Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
Well, just what Nick said, I think that's right. I mean, there is no Democratic establishment anymore. There's not even a Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party is a meaningless notion that the party, like the Republican Party, has been hollowed out and privatized to a large extent. There are Democratic elites, and so when we're talking about the Democratic establishment, we're really talking about a bunch of people that Nick also does well, which really means Democratic donors.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
There are just 8 days left in what is the most important election of our lifetime.
Where did you guys come to a conclusion about why Clinton had such a hard time just owning that she did something wrong with the email server?
You know, I know that Russia and other forces would love us to have a debate. This is exactly what they want. They want us to have a debate about the internal structure of Hillary's campaign, what's true, what's not true. And I'm just not going to play that. I'm sorry.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
You know, people have said, if you look at, for example, the heat that ended up around the bend the knee, Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Many smart people have said it actually was not a thing. The Russian bots started taking out. Yes.
But I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should
this
be
is
running.
Not about.
If you're like me, one of the millions suffering from pain caused by migraine, Nurtec ODT may help. It's the only medication that can treat a migraine when it strikes and prevent migraine attacks.
Trump and the Republicans lose on Tuesday, and if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only three things he mentioned in a sentence: a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean,
I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today.
And I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
and now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President. Bye.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I can't do it.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Citizens of the internet. Let me try that again. Citizens of the internet without phlegm in my throat. It is a beautiful Sunday afternoon. I've been singing that song, that Lionel Richie, I'm easy like a Sunday morning. I'm easy like a Sunday. Yeah, but easy like a Sunday morning watching the Iran war continue to unfold. Have you ever seen Glenn Deason? Glenn Deason has quickly become one of my favorite channels on the internet, on YouTube's, because he holds a lot of really kind of in-depth, intelligent policy conversations, foreign policy conversations with, a lot of different people. He's Norwegian, so I could understand like maybe the European kind of accent might get on some people's nerves. But I think he does really good work. And I was just listening to Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson on there, who, by the way, sounds like Hank Hill. Next time you hear Colonel Wilkerson talk, just picture Hank Hill from King of the Hill. You will totally understand what I'm talking about. That aside, that doesn't make his takes any less valid. In fact, I would think they would make them more valid because he would be the kind of everyman, blue-collar, right-winger that would typically be all for war with Iran. So, but basically what he was saying was this is not going to end well. This is a guy who's military, and he was just kind of sounding, honestly, he's kind of harsh in my mellow, if I'm being honest. A little bit doomsday, if you will. Anyway, a lot going on, and I feel like these broadcasts, for me personally, are kind of like a time capsule, which we're going to see a little bit more later, because it's almost like, for myself anyway, and hopefully what I'm doing here has some value to y'all out there. But for myself anyway, the value is, hold on a second.
I'm glad I checked this. For myself anyway, that's much better. Yeah, my mic wasn't on, I don't think. So it's good that I made sure, because I'm sure that I was getting picked up by the computer mic there for a minute. Where was I? Yeah, anyway, it's good to. Oh, that's right. I was explaining what these broadcasts, the purpose these broadcasts kind of serve for me. So the purpose that these broadcasts kind of serve for me is to be sort of a time capsule, kind of a marker, because the news comes so fast. It's nice to kind of reflect sometimes and go back and look at it. And I'm going to show you one of my pieces from a couple years ago later on. But I want to start today by putting a mark on the Iran war timeline, just a kind of assessment of where we are, what has occurred. What the prevailing narratives are in different media circles. This is our lovely thumbnail today. And I've noticed, I have to say this before I go too much further, I have noticed a lot of the shows I like starting to use AI to help with thumbnails, which I totally support. This obviously, I do a little bit of work myself. The font and stuff is mine. The logo's mine. But lately I've been spicing it up a little bit, and I appreciate that. I like the thumbnails as long as they're not misleading. I do try to make sure that my thumbnails are not misleading, that they are kind of an accurate representation of the subject matter, at least, that I'm discussing, because, you know, you see a photo like that and you're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. That's like going to be some like war video. And then you click into it and it's just some asshole in a beanie drinking coffee and talking to you, you know. It better be worth the juice better be worth the squeeze, or the thumbnail better be worth the click is essentially what I'm getting at here. Let's move over to CNN. And this is the front page of CNN today. And this is consequential for a couple reasons. First, because, you know, as much as I despise CNN, at least they are kind of covering news that people care about. You know, Trump sets consequential Monday with Iran ultimatum and ICE at airports. And so just kind of like looking at some of these, looking at the a little more closely at these headlines here, right? You've got Iran vows retaliation if president attacks Tehran's power plants over Strait of Hormuz. You've got White House border czar says immigration agents will bolster airport security as long TSA lines continue. And then you got some March Madness stuff and so on. So that's how CNN is looking at the news right now. They're kind of concerned about the consequential nature of Trump's. Yeah, what's the deal with the TSA? I'm not. They haven't completely funded that yet. Is that the kind of thing with that? Because honestly, from an outside perspective, you know, this could be how you dismantle an agency like the TSA, right? And I would be totally support dismantling the TSA. And if they're using ICE agents to kind of fill in the gaps, maybe they just averted a bunch of the budget from TSA to ICE or something. And so they're like, hey, let's just put ICE here now. I don't know. I probably should have done more research on this, but let me know in the comments if you have any insight on that, because it does seem like maybe they're just kind of like taking a wrecking ball to TSA by not funding it or something. I don't know the full story, but anyway. So here's Fox News headlines. Check this out. So you'll notice something interesting about Fox News's homepage today. They mysteriously avoid the Strait of Hormuz talk, but they do. The only mention of Iran, you'll notice. So the top headline on Fox News today, of course, is sheriff running for governor seizes 650K ballots amid claims that excess votes were found. So the Republicans are busy with their voter fraud witch hunt now, which, can you blame them? I mean, after the Russia shit, you know, you really can't be too mad about their partisan witch huntery. However, let's take a closer look again at this these headlines here. The only mention of Iran you have on the Fox News homepage here is down here on the left. Trump shares clip of SNL mocking British PM's handling of Iran conflict. And then you have Code Pink activists hole up in ritzy Havana hotels as Cuban residents lose power. Now, one of the things, of course, I haven't even got into Cuba yet because there's so much other stuff going on. But one of the things that's interesting about this is, and we're going to get into this in great detail right now, is you have the USA, you know, obviously wanting to bring freedom to Cuba, while the streets of the USA look like this.
We are standing on holy ground, and I know that there are angels all around.
A lot of Americans are looking at this and going like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is downtown Los Angeles. I could be wrong about that, but it's, you know, the palm trees maybe give it away in the warm weather. I'm not 100% sure where this was shot, but it could be pretty much any American city in the Southwest, from Phoenix to Albuquerque to, you know, Maybe not Palm Springs.
Father,
Palm Springs. The gays keep Palm Springs nice and clean.
precious spirit.
This is just a walk through a U.S. street on any given day. And so the idea that Cuba's failing because of communism, it's kind of like, how do you guys honestly look around the country you live in and want to bring freedom to Cuba? And I'm getting off the rails a little bit here. What does this have to do with the Iran war, though? Here you go. This is Pete Hegseth recently. Hegseth explains why Iran is different from the USA. Iran spends its money on war instead of helping their people in need, unlike America. That sound a little bit out of touch.
What's your name, scumbag?
Just a little bit out of touch.
You go back to your home on Whore Island.
So this is the level of disconnect you're going to see right now with the Iran war. And it's interesting. You know, I don't interact a lot with the normies, but the other night I was talking to this kid about the Iran war, mainly because I drive an electric car, which I argued vehemently with someone about in the comments the other day. But if you look at what China's doing, they're less dependent on fossil fuel. You know, they've built wind and solar mills that run power plants. They have a huge electric car infrastructure. For me personally, gas prices are kind of irrelevant, you know, and I think long-term, maybe oil prices will affect the cost of charging because they're going to affect the cost of energy overall, but that's downstream quite a ways, and how much is debatable. So anyway, whole sidebar there about electric cars. But why do I say all this? Why am I bringing up Pete Hegseth and electric cars and the war with Iran? Well, right now, people think that we're winning the war. And this kid that I was explaining my car thing to, I started talking to him because, you know, I'm very heavily on Twitter. So the things that I think that people like us who are, you know, heavily on social media, kind of watching what's going on, are feeling versus what the average normie who just watches CNN or MSNBC or MS Now, multiple sclerosis now, as I like to call it. Those people are completely disconnected from not only reality, but the skepticism that we have. You know, there's a lot of fake shit, obviously, on Twitter too. There's a lot of fake AI video, but there's community notes, and most people on Twitter are approaching it with an air of skepticism, where I think people that watch CNN or MSNBC literally go, oh, this is the unvarnished truth. This is the news. So you do have that dynamic. And the reason I bring all this up is here is Donald Trump, and this is not recent footage, but this is him talking about the Iran war. I think it was
a great name. Well, it's only good if you win. You know, you can only do.
Oh, he's talking about Operation Epic Fury, which I'm referring to as Operation Epic Fail, of course. And a lot of people are referring to as Operation Epstein Fury, which I think obviously is even better. Credit to Max Blumenthal for that one. I'm pretty sure Max Blumenthal is the genius who came up with Operation Epstein Fury, and even just the term the Epstein class, which is being used very heavily amongst the resistance at the moment. Watch this.
We've won. Let me tell you, we've won. You know, you never like to say too early you won. We won. We won the bet. In the first hour, it was over. But we won. But they gave me a list.
Keep in mind, this is 10 days ago. This is March 12th. Today is the 22nd.
Sir, you can pick the name you'd like, sir. I said, the name of what? The name of the attack on Iran, sir. And they gave me like 20 names. And I'm like falling asleep. I didn't like any of them. Then I see Epic Fury. I said,
You know what would be a brilliant social media move by the White House is to release the full list of names that he's talking about here. Because he's talking about, oh, they came to me with a list of names, and it's going to be Operation Epic Disaster is what they're going to have to call it. But I would love to see the full list. Like, what are some of the other proposed names that they had besides Epic Fury? You know, there's some good ones in there. I would love to see that. So White House, this is the challenge is on you and your social media team to release the full list, release the files, release the Operation Epic Fury outtakes. Hashtag release the files. Anyway.
I like that name. I like that name.
Yeah, he likes that name. So as you heard him say,
but they gave me a list of.
We won.
We won the bet in the first. You never like to say too early. You won. We won. We won the bet.
We won. We are winning. That is what a lot of people think that aren't watching Twitter and seeing what's actually going on, which is, I'm not saying this is the whole story, but this is definitely a big part of the story. For some reason, I'm not seeing that on CNN or MSN Multiple Sclerosis Now or Fox News. Why do you think that is? There is the other thing that it really disgusts me to no end that we don't have any real journalists left. What is the actual casualty number? I want to know, like, they're completely lying about that. Where is a real reporter who's going to get into like the military hospital and release the real numbers and say, hey, look, we went to this hospital where they're taking injured U.S. military personnel to. We found out based on the hospital numbers records, this many perished, this many are wounded. Where are those reporters? Why don't they exist in the modern transparency ecosystem that we have today with the internet? I sincerely hope, and listen to me sitting here in my fucking comfortable apartment yelling at reporters to go get the fucking news. Listen, if I had the capability to do it, I would do it. But I guarantee you there's people out there like a Max Blumenthal who have the resources to, do this investigation. So I encourage them to do that. And I apologize for my own lack of self-awareness, my own slosa in this. However, I think it's a reasonable request. Like if you call yourself a journalist, Michael Tracy, maybe Michael Tracy will surprise us all and release the casualty number. The real casualty number is that. Redeem himself. So first, 10 days ago, Trump was saying that we were winning. It's over. We basically ended them. And then I just showed you that recent video of a missile attack by Iran on the U.S., kind of Israel alliance, whatever you want to call it at this point. Us real, U.S. real. And so fast forward, now you have Trump saying things more like this.
Little unfair. You win a war, but they have no right to be doing what they're doing. But we're hitting them very hard. And today is a big day. We're pounding a certain area that has very much to do with the Strait. And I think they're going to go in very one. So it's little unfair. You win a war.
Trump added,
I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a lot of bad ones. I've gone to a lot of hurricanes, a lot of tornadoes. I've never seen anything like this. This is a bad one.
Yay! So this is where we're at with Trump's denialism of the IRM. And just one more little comment from our beloved president to give you an idea as to where we currently stand here. Listen to this one. This is a great one too.
People don't understand it's a big chess game at a very high level. It's a very high level chess, the highest. And I'm dealing with very smart players. These are smart people.
And we're actually playing against the people who invented the game of chess itself.
They don't get there. When you deal with some of these people, you're dealing with high level intellect,
very high IQ people. Much more.
Very high IQ
only
people.
People don't understand.
That's what you're dealing with. And in the U.S., you're dealing with very high moral people who, unlike Iran, would never just endlessly spend money on weapons and completely ignore their own population to the point where eventually it just looked like this.
We are standing, Jesus now.
So the final movement here, whether that's the movement of a symphony or a bow, the decision is up to you. Alternative perception, alternative take on the motives behind this war right here. Here we go. November 2025. This is a timeline for you. Candace Owens does timelines well. I'm not ever going to claim to be on the level that Candace Owens is on. However, this is a timeline you may find interesting if you're a fan of Candace Owens, or even if you're not. November 2025, Netanyahu sets the goal of assassinating Iran's supreme leader. December 2025, Lockheed Martin begins ramping up weapons production months before the war. December 22nd, 2025, Senator Boozman, chairman of military appropriations, buys RTX stock. Senator Williams buys defense stocks. December 29th, Senator Mullen, Armed Services Committee, buys 15 to 50,000 of RTX stock. January 2026, Lockheed signs the landmark deal to triple PAC-3 and quadruple THAAD production. So, interestingly enough, those THAADs are something that Iran knocked out. They already started production before the war. Interesting. January 9th, Rep Cisneros buys RTX stock. January 12th, U.S. activates new joint missile defense center at Al Udeid in Qatar. February 27th, Oman's FM announces breakthrough. Iran agrees to dilute uranium and accept IAEA verification. Peace is within reach. February 28th, bombs fall. So, as you can see, behind the scenes, there's this kind of stuff going on that the public isn't really paying attention to. And so you have to wonder if Iran was seeing this kind of happening. I'm sure they were, based on how well they've held their ground. So to keep going here, March 1st, defense stocks hit all-time highs, 25 to 30 billion in shareholder wealth created in one day. March 6th, Trump hosts CEOs of 7 defense contractors at the White House. Lockheed, we agreed to quadruple production. March 9th, oil hits $119 per barrel. Markets crash globally, 1,850 dead across 16 countries. And the War Powers Resolution voted down, 47 to 53 by the same Congress that bought the stocks, that got the briefings, that took the blank money. Read that timeline again. Your boy, Nettie Boy, Benji Milikowski, planned it in November. Lockheed prepared in December. Congress bought stocks in December and January. The peace deal was announced on February 27th. The bombs fell on February 28th. Peace was within reach at 6 p.m. The bombs fell at midnight. They didn't fail at peace. They chose war. While their stocks were already positioned, while weapons were already built, while the kill target was already selected, and you get $3.50 per gallon gas, it's going to be a lot more than that. I'm warning you. A crashing stock market, dead soldiers, and a president who calls you a fool for worrying about it. You also get some co-opted influencers, but they chose war, they profited from war, and they're billing you for the war. The only question left is, what are you going to do about it? Well, America. Breaking, we're going live to the White House in Mar-a-Lago. then you have people, a lot of these influencers, pro-Trump influencers who were anti-war. Now that Trump is doing war, this is them.
like that song. Yay!
So that is more than likely the real motivation to why we're doing this and why the bombs dropped and why peace was inevitably not attained. And I will ask you this. Knowing that all that stuff is true, all those things that they laid out, we're not making any specific claims here. We're just pointing out some interesting coincidences. If you had to pick a side, which side are you picking? And no one in America voted for war with Iran, just the opposite. So I keep hearing these stories about the troops kind of dissenting in massive waves, and I support that 100%. Conscientious objection. But also I want to end this piece with this little bit of data for you. In China, senior officials are banned from buying stocks, not even family members, and for good reason. Americans are being taken for a ride. And this, my friends, is communism. This is why communism is bad. And freedom is the only way. That right there, holding politicians, barring politicians from investing in markets that they have control over, that is communism, you guys. That's an anti-freedom communism. And this is why all these people out here screaming about communism or whatever. Take a look at the fucking United States. Oh, we got to invade Cuba so we can bring this to Cuba. Let's get this happening. It's already happening there. And you know why it's happening? It's not because of communism, you dumb fucks. It's because of U.S. blockades and sanctions. We can't just let these countries expire and fail on their own. No, we have to control global trade and prevent them from getting goods and services. We murder. The United States is the fucking terrorists of the world. We're disgusting. And it's at least, I'm optimistic because I feel like my generation on down is awake to that. So we're just kind of like dealing with these boomers who still watch Fox and multiple sclerosis now and think that that's, real news. But meanwhile, how can you run around acting like we need to export our way of life when it looks like that to, I don't know how that looks on the other side. On my preview, I'm like, it looks like that. To me, that's pointing in the right direction, but it might be flipped for you. So maybe it's that. I don't know. When it looks like this. Moving on. So obviously the big news in the world right now is the Iran war. And there's a lot of different kind of factors at play when it comes to that. This coffee's so fucking delicious, man. One of those factors is the Strait of Hormuz, which is proving to be the Achilles heel of Operation Epic Failure, Operation Epstein Fury, whatever you want to call it. Here is the current state of things for you from our boy Ryan Knight. Stranded, the U.S. and this is from March 20th, 2 days ago. Stranded, the U.S. and Israel's war on Iran has left 3,200 ships and 20,000 crew members stranded in the Persian Gulf. The situation is so bad, oil companies are paying Iran $2 million to let ships pass. Trump has no idea what he's doing and is being completely outmaneuvered by Iran. And if you think that that is stupid, they just unsanctioned Iranian oil because the markets are cratering, which everyone predicted would happen if you lock up global trade. But also, there's stories about Iran beginning to charge ships Chinese yuan to get through and them taking that. So we'll get more into that in just a second. This is the current state of things. And of course, our always classy diplomatic president responded recently. This is from yesterday. If Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first, President Donald J. Trump. Now, what's the analogy that I made to America? I've been making to America the last couple of weeks. It's the drunken, fat, stupid bully who might be like a green belt or something in karate, rolling into or just started UFC or something, like rolling into a bar and picking fights with everybody. And, you know, obviously sucker punching a couple dudes and making their noses bleed and really scaring the shit out of people. And then finally picking a fight with a cold and calculating martial artist who knows how to dismantle them and just, you know, ends up like breaking the dude's nose and getting him in a headlock. Like, that's where we're at with Iran. We were there, but now Trump is loose and he's like wildly flailing again after the guy busted his nose, and like he can't see straight because there's blood in his eyes. And, you know, if you've ever been in an environment where there's physical violence taking place, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, I just painted the picture for you. So that's where we're at. And this statement proves it positively. When you look at, like, you can just feel the desperation in this Truth Social post. Truth indeed. That's what I say. So, of course, as has been the cadence in this war, after Trump's threat, Iran countered with a threat of their own. Here's their response. Breaking, Iran responds to President Trump's threat to obliterate Iranian power plants if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened within 48 hours. Iran's response, Iran will completely close the Strait of Hormuz. 2, Iran will hit vital infrastructure in the Middle East. 3, this includes energy, IT, and water desalination facilities. 4, Iran's senior military commander says the country's military strategy has shifted from defensive to offensive. 5, Iranian officials say the country has enough reserves of essential goods to last up to 1 year. Trump's deadline has 33 hours remaining. Now, given the, past couple of weeks and the way that things have been progressing, I do not see Iran taking that threat seriously. What about you? Do you see them going like, "Oh, okay, well, now we're gonna bow down, Trump. Finally, your angry Truth Social post really convinced us to just stop respond." I go back to this phrase all the time, the arrogance of impunity. Credit to Russell Dobler of Due Dissonance for coining that phrase, because it's a good one. There's no better way to describe the mentality of the empire right now as it stands. The arrogance of impunity. Like, no one has ever pushed back. And I think that's why the world looks at Iran as being, so heroic, such heroic people. They're one of the first, they're the first group to actually like push back in a way that's been massively successful. And I think what he said here, what the Iranians said here about how they have 1 year of goods and services, you also forget they're part of the BRICS alliance. So China and Russia can also help them replenish their stockpiles of missiles, replenish, the U.S. can try in vain to stop that from happening. I don't think it can do that. I mean, this war has really made the USA really look like a paper tiger, I think, unless you're watching mainstream news. And it's probably the best thing that could ever happen to us. You know, I really hope that when it's all said and done, if it continues on the trajectory it is, and the U.S. gets our asses handed to us, I can include myself in this. Obviously, I'm part of the problem. I live in this country and haven't, like, January 6th seems so so tame compared to what's anyway. Total sidebar, but the world, I think, perceives us and our playmates in the Middle East as what we actually are, which is the destabilization factor, the biggest destabilization. Like I said, we're the fucking terrorists of the world. And it's high time that we acknowledge that. There was this Israeli, before I get into this, who had this great tweet, an Israeli, like, anti-war guy. And just, to prove that all Israelis aren't bad. He said something to the effect of, a lot of the Nazis, like, very few of the Nazis actually hurt people or killed people. Most of the Nazis just kind of stood idly by while it happened. And, that stuck with me. He said it in a much more artful way than I did just now, but someone who said it even more artfully, who basically kind of called out the USA and our buddies in the Middle East for their treachery and ridiculous arrogance, was Tim Dillon. And I want you to watch this and let's talk about it. This is absolutely
all over the world. Are you going to be an American tourist right now, you psychopath? We're destabilizing the globe. What kind of psychopath are you going to be right now? You're going to go to Italy and tell them why they're fucked because we're attacking Iran? And we've driven the price of oil up and everything's gone insane? Have the decency to not inflict yourself on the rest of the world at this point. Do you think anyone wants you? Does anyone want the American tourist right now telling people how it is? Oh, it's the ugly American here who's blowing up the world with Israel, everyone's other favorite country. Oh, good, it's America and Israel, everyone's favorites. Everyone's favorites. Tell them where the best cheese shop is. It's America and Israel. Us in Israel right now are like just two junky meth heads the town has had enough of. The town has had enough.
Fentanyl addicts.
Of this behavior. I mean, us in Israel, nobody is excited right now to hear anything about the United States or Israel.
Our drug of choice is regime change wars, illegal regime change wars.
No one in this world wants to hear about that. Sorry, nobody wants to hear about that right now. So instead of getting on a plane to Scotland so you can go tell everyone that you're from America and how important it is that the Ayatollah had to get whacked during Ramadan and that they should look out for more refugees and more terrorist attacks in their countries, that's coming soon. Just tell them, during our destabilizing of the world, we've all decided we want to travel. We've all decided we want to travel after lighting the fuse that might lead to World War III. We've decided we always wanted to see Edinburgh. We wanted to have high tea at the castle after we've lit the fuse that might start World War III. Have the decency to stay in your home, for Christ, please. No one wants to see your fucking face. Or mine. No one wants to see us right now. The fuck you gonna go to Spain and drink wine in the park and be like, well, Israel has the right to defend itself? No one wants this shit from you. A bunch of fat American fucking psychopaths invading your country to tell you about that Israel needs to attack 19 other countries? You guys should really help us with this Strait of Hormuz. They're going to start kidnapping Americans in these countries and killing them publicly, and they won't be wrong. They're going to start kidnapping Americans out of their hotels and throwing them in the middle of the street and lighting them on fire. We're literally destabilizing the world, okay? We're destabilizing the planet Earth, like in a major way. And Americans' main concern right now is how they can get their fat ass on a cruise to one of the other countries who were also fucking in the process of this, by the way. So the thing about Americans, we'll never not travel. We don't care. We'll nuke Iran. We'll start a nuclear exchange, and then we'll get on a flight to Paris. We don't care. We will straight up bring the world to nuclear Armageddon, and then we will go and take a tour of a winemaking, a vineyard in Italy. We don't care.
So I just want to take a moment here. That was absolutely brilliant, by the way. Thank you, Tim Dillon. But I just want to take a moment here to emphasize that our excuse for doing these wars is like with Iran and stuff is like, oh, those people are like, they're savages. They're like disgusting savages who don't allow for democracy and free thought. That's our argument for going into these countries and regime changing them as we do this kind of shit here in the United States, as we, ICE murders people in the street, and, there's fentanyl addicts in tent cities in every major metropolis in the country. We need to export that. That's our primary. We got to get democracy on the table. Like, who buys that anymore? Who buys any of that? That like, it's for democracy and freedom and spreading the values of the United States. What values do we have? We murder people who are negotiating with us in good faith and then act like we're above them. Like our entire argument for these wars is we have the moral high ground. We're better than, Iran, who like jails dissidents and censors the population and censors the news. It's like, that's why we got to get in there, because we do all the fucking shit to the nth degree, and people just roll along with the punches like it's normal. And it is normal. It's been normalized. That's why you can talk to a person who doesn't use Twitter and they're just like, yeah, America's really giving it to them. We're really giving it to them, guys, over there in the Middle East. I love this war.
Why don't you go back to your home on Whore Island?
So just to show you, how much moral high ground we actually have. I don't know if you saw this recently, but this is an RT reporter. RT, an actual agency that does actual news that's critical of the U.S. government, because you will not find that in the United States. You have to literally go to foreign news to get stories that are critical of the government. This is a guy named Steve Sweeney,
including the Al-Marj outpost opposite Merkabah, and carried out drone strikes on the Al-Raheb site near Aitar al-Shab. Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and admitted.
Now notice he's wearing a vest that says press in gigantic letters. He's got a guy with a camera on him. Must be a terrorist. Great job. Way to go, USA and Israel.
America, fuck yeah. Coming again to save the motherfucking day, yeah.
So here's Sweeney's response to this.
Yeah, well, you've probably all seen the footage of the airstrike that took place in Sur District as we were reporting on the destruction of a bridge. We've been treated in hospital for our injuries. I had a shrapnel wound in my arm, deeply embedded in the muscle here. That's been taken out, and here it is.
So I think I kind of answered my own question about why no intrepid reporter has gone and dug up the actual casualty numbers and reported them in public news. This is what they're doing to guys who are showing up at the scene of the war and covering it with a critical eye, trying to hit them with missiles.
In this pot here, but what I do want to say is that this was a deliberate, targeted attack on journalists. There's no mistake about it. This was an Israeli precision strike from a fighter jet. What we were doing was we were reporting on the attacks on bridges, which is effectively severing South Lebanon from the rest of the country. 1 million people now internally displaced. This is the real story. It's not about us coming under attack as journalists. What we're seeing now, and what we were reporting on, is this plan for Israel to ethnically cleanse the south of Lebanon. This is without doubt an attack. This is on the scale, or bigger than the scale of the Nakba. This is the forced displacement of 1 million people, which remains a war crime. And also we have to say that attacking journalists is a war crime. Attacking civilian infrastructure is a war crime. But if they think that they're going to silence us, if they think that we're going to stay out of the field, they're very, very much mistaken.
Thank you, Russia Today, for doing actual news. One of the few actual like reporting agencies doing real news, getting shot at by the forces of good and freedom. And how is this going? So another sign of how well this little project is going is this right here. The people who are attempting to murder journalists and started the war are now going to the UN to complain about war crimes. So, I mean, this is a video. I didn't record the video, but this is a video of the Israeli UN ambassador shredding like the UN charter because the UN, accused Israel of not complying with it. So that kind of gives you an idea just how well this whole project happens to be going right now for these people. So, just to kind of continue down this path here. Absolutely, it's insane that the Ziopigs convinced an entire generation that Sharia law was coming to America, as Ziopigs infiltrated our government and passed laws making it illegal to criticize a country that was founded by the Rothschilds. Oh my God. So another way that you know that this is, not going well for the United States and our friends is this. So there was recently a report. Let me read this actually first. Our good friends in the Middle East and the U.S. keep attacking their allies to lure them into the war. Cyprus, Turkey, Bahrain, and now British base on Diego Garcia. The enemy is inside the house. The cancer needs to be removed, root and stem. So what he's talking about is there was recently a report that Iran fired a missile at Diego Garcia, which is like 3,000 miles out into the ocean. It was later found out through Russian and Chinese satellite imagery that it was actually a submarine that fired that missile, probably a U.S. or Israeli submarine. So there you have it. And last but not least, I want to kind of show you the strategic nature here of the Hormuz Strait, because this right here is why no one before Trump was ever dumb enough to start an invasion of Iran. This is Glenn Deason, my man. Iran has made it clear that there's no going back to the way things were. Crippling sanctions and constant threats from the U.S. military bases in the Gulf states. Given that political agreements are seen as meaningless and diplomacy as deceptive, this is what the U.S. has done to its own reputation. We just killed, why would you negotiate with the United States at this point? Why? No one would. No one in their right mind would negotiate with us. Given the political agreements are seen as meaningless and diplomacy as deceptive, Iran has decided that the U.S. must be expelled from the region. The Gulf states cannot survive without access to the Strait of Hormuz. Their access may therefore be conditioned on paying taxes as reparations and selling their oil in other currencies to the petrodollar system that ties the U.S. to the region. This war will prove to have been a historic mistake, as the effort to restore global primacy only intensified its demise. Yet in our local media, the propaganda is still organized around the savior narrative, like liberating women and helping protesters. I did a piece making fun of Youngblood a couple weeks ago. God, Bono Jr. It's the pathetic how liberals, like these fucking liberals, will go along with this trash. This is why the Bernie movement could never be allowed to take hold of the Democratic Party, because they would not have been able to do what they've done with the current Democratic Party with the Bernie movement at the helm. Take that to the fucking bank. Anyway, this war will prove to have been a historic mistake, as the effort to restore global primacy only intensified its demise. Yet in our local media, the propaganda is still organized around the savior narrative of liberating women and helping protesters. This is similar to the absurd narrative of the Ukraine war, where the effort of using Ukrainians to impose a strategic defeat on Russia is sold to the public as NATO helping Ukraine defend its sovereignty. If the West wants to maximize its security and end these conflicts on favorable terms, it must break free from the narratives it has created. Watch this video breakdown on what Trump has done to the Strait of Hormuz.
Jam that could crash the world economy? This is the Strait of Hormuz. Right now, hundreds of massive oil tankers are sitting motionless in the water, waiting on a single decision from Iran. These ships carry 20% of the world's oil, but they are being held back by a new kind of invisible gate. Iran is reportedly demanding that any ship passing through must pay for its cargo in Chinese yuan instead of US dollars. For most of these tankers, this is a system error. Their entire financial network is built on the dollar, and switching to the yuan takes time that the world doesn't have. Every day these ships sit still, the cost of oil rises, and insurance premiums skyrocket. It's not just a physical blockade, it's a financial one. If the ships don't move soon, the petrodollar system that has powered the world for 50 years might finally reach its breaking. Have you ever seen a traffic jam?
There it is. And there you have it. I think the U.S. jumped into this thinking, oh, yeah, this is going to be easy. We're just going to take over that country and, like, to the victor go the spoils. And surprise, motherfucker. What's that guy Dokes from Dexter? If you've ever watched that show, you probably wouldn't get that reference unless you watch that show. Be like, surprise, motherfucker. That's Iran right now. Surprise, motherfucker. We've been stocking our shit up, and now you're going to have to face opposition, whereas before you've just been able to roll over everybody and treat the world like you own the place, and now someone with skills is stepping up to your fucking pig-headed bully maneuvers, and that's it. Most of Americans are on the same page as I am. That's the crazy part. We've already covered that. Anyway, moving on. This is one of our, I would say, probably better pieces of the day here, and it's about your boy. Everyone, every left-leaning person's hero, Bill Maher. Here he is pictured with your boy, Benjamin Netanyahu. Or Benji Milikowski, as I like to call him. So, Bill Maher, you know, he's one of the last talk shows that has any kind of real dialogue going on. So he makes news a lot. And he's also one of these people who belongs to the Bureau of Imaginary Problems, where, you know, this is kind of like what rich liberals have to do to achieve some sort of personal validation or relevance. They have to kind of like attach themselves to stupid causes that don't actually really exist or affect anyone, like anti-Semitism, which is, anyone stupid in Hollywood who runs in the Benjamin Milikowski circle like Maher is going to think this way. This is why the boomers, the age dynamic, I think, is more of a political wedge than anything else in the modern conversation of American politics, right? Because you have pro-Palestinian people on the left and far right non-interventionalist people on the same page with this issue. So really all you can do is try to label people who disagree with you a racist, which is exactly what this is. It's so pathetic. So I want to start this deep dive into our boy Joe Kent here, who is clearly, what do we say about Joe Kent, Douglas Murray?
You're an anti-Semite.
Yeah, so Joe Kent here. This is how Trump spoke about Joe Kent when Joe Kent was coming into the administration, before Trump had started an illegal war that is ruining the global economy and the country as a whole. It is my pleasure to nominate Joe Kent as the director of National Counterterrorism Center. As a soldier, sorry, my Trump is terrible. As a soldier, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. As a soldier, Green Beret, and CIA officer, Joe has hunted down terrorists and criminals his entire life. Above all, Joe knows the terrible cost of terrorism, losing his wonderful wife, Shannon, a great American hero who was killed in the fight against ISIS. Joe continues to honor her legacy. By staying in the fight, Joe will help us keep America safe by eradicating all the terrorism from the jihadists around the world, the cartels in our backyard. So this was, obviously from, I didn't catch the date, but it was obviously from when Joe was nominated to the position he just resigned from. And I want to show you now, knowing how Trump used to feel before, he was responsible for tanking the global economy and basically setting the country on a path towards disaster. We'll see. You know what? He's been able to slick his way out of these kind of things before, so it's not over yet, but it's not looking good. This is Joe Kent on Tucker Carlson recently. Listen to what he says.
You hold the cards, because President Trump truly does hold the cards. He's a very powerful, very respected leader, and what I think President Trump
sounds very detrimental to Trump, doesn't it?
Trump must do is number one, he has to address the main issue. The main issue is what the Israelis are doing. And he needs to very forcefully, and probably with a new team of diplomats, go to the Israelis and say, you're done. We will defend you. We will make sure that, ballistic missiles aren't rained down upon you. However, you are done going on the offense, because this is our war. We're paying for it. We're bleeding for it. This is not your war. If you choose to continue this offensive operation, we're out. And as a matter of fact, if you choose to continue, we will start withdrawing features of your defense system so that you will be on your own. We have to say that to them, and we have to be very blunt, and we have to be very forceful. And I know a lot of people who like the Israelis are going to say, we can't do that. That's wrong. They're under fire, etc. But if we don't do that, if we don't address our relationship with the Israelis, even if we come up with a temporary ceasefire, we'll be right back in this same situation in very short order. So that's the first thing that President Trump must do, address the main issue. The main issue is how the Israelis are out of control, and they are driving this entire war.
So watching this interview, a lot of red flags kind of went up in my head, because I'm just like, wait a minute, he's not even really saying anything against the war or like it was wrong. He's just basically like, oh, it's all Israel's fault. More to come on that. Just keep that in the back of your head.
Address that aggressively, get the Israelis to stop.
How realistically, just having lived through this whole thing, how hard will that be?
It will be hard, but again, President Trump can do it. President Trump can call the Prime Minister of Israel and get him to the table. President Trump can force it. I believe that. I truly believe that he can. So I think it's doable. It's only doable with President Trump. And then from there, once we get the Israelis to stop, we still, for now, have strong allies in the Gulf.
You're an anti-Semite.
I think we all know that's where this is going.
You're an anti-Semite.
So I picked this up from the Vigilant Fox on Twitter. Bill Maher fires back at Joe Kent, says he's pushing another version of anti-Semitism and listening too much to Tucker Carlson. Does it get any more boomer than that, Bill Maher? Jesus Christ, man. It's, the Jews made us do it. It's just another version of anti-Semitism. First, it was BB derangement syndrome. Then they're colonizers and genocide, which it wasn't. I don't think we're Israel's bitch. I think we're Israel's ally. So anyway, here is Bill Maher calling this guy. I mean, you watch the video. The guy's like not even saying anything that against Trump, really. Listen to this.
You have now this guy, Joe Kent. He quit this week. It was a big story. I think he was the counterintelligence guy. And he said, I can't go along with this because, you know what, he's been listening to too much Tucker Carlson.
So FYI, the sound in this was really bad. I'll have to fix it in post, but bear with me.
The Jews made us do it. It's just another version of anti-Semitism that comes out. First it was BDS, then it was their colonizers.
You're an anti-Semite.
All these other reasons, like you can't have a state in the world that's based on religion, even though there's like 46 Muslim countries that are based on religion. Some have the name right in the title of the country. But whatever it is, you have all these. And now the big...
Bill Maher, the guy who made Religulous, is like advocating for a religious state. For
answer is, no, Israel made us do it. We're Israel's bitch. I don't think we're Israel's bitch. I think we're Israel's ally. But, if I have to be on one side of this MAGA thing, either Trump or Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Nick Fuentes, I'll be with Trump on this one. Because that's the other side of MAGA.
Yay!
Liberals like,
yay! I like that song. Yay! Yay!
Centrism.
Yay! I like that song. Yay!
So Bill Maher actually may have more of a point than I originally thought, which we're going to get to in a minute. But before we do that, as Stephen Colbert used to say, Jimmy, roll the clips.
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people, people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen.
So that's March 3rd. Trump taking credit for the attack. Here is Rubio.
With a very clear goal in
March
mind.
2nd,
I haven't
the
had
day
a chance
before.
to see a lot of reporting. I don't understand what the confusion is. If Iran came under attack by anyone, the United States or Israel or anyone, they were going to respond and respond against the United States. The orders had been delegated down to the field commanders. It was automatic, and in fact, it bared to be true because, in fact, within an hour of the initial attack on the leadership compound, the missile forces in the south and in the north, for that matter, had already been activated to launch. In fact, those had already been pre-positioned. The third is the assessment that was made that if we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces.
There you go. We knew there was going to be an Israeli action, and we knew that would precipitate an attack against American forces. So there's anti-Semite Marco Rubio.
You're an anti-Semite.
Admitting that they did it because of Israel.
There was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces, and we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
You're an anti-Semite.
So we got one more clip here of the Trump administration admitting that they did it because of Israel.
No, I might have forced their hand. You see,
I might have done the same clip twice. My bad. I think we already showed that one. So all well and good. I thought. Maybe though, just open your mind and consider for a moment that maybe it's true that Joe Kent actually is an anti-Semite.
You're an anti-Semite.
And I say that because of this clip with your boy, Brian. So Brian Berletic, or Berletic, I don't know how you say his name exactly, but he's a former Marine. And it's so amazing, as I was putting this segment together, this happened to be playing in the background. And listen to what Brian Berletic says about Joe Kent, because I think this is the interesting thing. When it comes to the Joe Kent shit, you know, obviously he's being lauded as a hero, and I definitely respect anyone that has the courage of their convictions to do the kind of thing that he did and like sacrifice a high-paying job like that. However, when you listen to the guy talk, it's not like I agree with everything he's saying. He's kind of like playing into that whole, Iran's a bunch of terrorists and whatever. Like, you know, anyway, listen to Brian Berletic here, because he really lays it out. This is actually absolutely fucking perfect finish to this segment here. Listen here.
When does that actually break Iran? I don't know. In terms of U.S. political cohesion, I mean, again, this is what I was warning about before the 2024 elections. There is no opposition. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party, everybody in between in Washington is working for Wall Street. And no matter what theater they perform in front of the American public, they're always going to work for Wall Street. This is what they've always been doing. This is why from George Bush Jr., you watch them go step by step by step up towards this war. And one administration setting the stage perfectly for the next administration to advance towards this war of aggression against Iran that's now taking place. The Joe Kent resigning, I would be very careful about this, because the whole purpose of him resigning was not to criticize the Trump administration. It was to blame Israel. So again, go back to that policy paper from 2009, leave it to Bibi, use Israel as a disposable proxy to execute your war of aggression against Iran. This is a war that may go badly for the United States. We don't know. We don't know at this point. I think it's still too early.
Disposable proxy. So maybe Bill Maher was right. And that's the thing. You know, people like Garland Nixon have been hammering on this point that, you know, it's convenient excuse for the U.S. to blame, to blame Israel for everything that it's doing. And what Berletic's saying here is that's exactly what they're doing. They're using Israel as a disposable proxy. So I like that term. It kind of stuck in my head a little bit.
To tell, it's definitely, no matter which way it goes, destroying the global economy. And so if you could, wouldn't you want to blame that on somebody else and flush all of that down with somebody else, and then emerge on the other side of this with your hands relatively clean, or at least some people believing you're relatively clean from all of this? So that's what he is doing. He has, even when he was condemning this and blaming Israel, he was still acting as if Iran was some sort of threat, or they were killing Americans for years and years. But he doesn't mention that these are Americans that were illegally invading the region specifically to encircle and contain and threaten Iran's own existence. If it was the other way around, Americans would have done the exact same thing. He doesn't talk about all of that. So he is an establishment figure doing damage control and scapegoating. So I'd be very careful about this. And the American political system is designed specifically to compartmentalize damage control, scapegoat, divide, distract, and continue continuity of agenda. That is what it is designed to do. It is very good at doing that.
So there you have it. Beautifully summed up there by Mr. Berletic, what the kind of, I would say maybe the post-game analysis on the Joe Kent thing is that, hey, look, you know, definitely respect for having the courage of your convictions. However, a little bit skeptical of the motives here, because it's kind of looking like this guy's not really much of anything other than not doing much other than pointing the finger at Israel as if they bear all the blame for starting the war in the Middle East, and, you know, working as Mr. Berletic put it, disposable proxy, so that the agenda can continue forward. And even if we have to sacrifice those people in that state, we can get what we wanted. However, I would argue I'm not sure that that's working out the way that they had hoped. And all the propaganda in the fucking world ain't going to change that, boys and girls. So we'll leave it at that for that particular subject. And we will move into a new regular segment. I'm not sure how often this is going to go on, but ladies and gentlemen, the week in propaganda. There it is. Now, amidst all the serious talk of war and what's, you know, going on with the economy, Trump's followers in the remainder of what the corpse or the carcass of what you could refer to as the MAGA movement, which is basically like Mark Levin and a piece of moldy bread at this point. Maybe Ben Shapiro is in that camp. Lindsey Graham. That's, you know, what's left of MAGA. You know, obviously those people are not MAGA. Those people are all anti-Trumpers until he started a war with Iran. But I digress. A lot of propaganda coming from these people and their ilk. So if you're trying to have a serious debate or a serious conversation about some of the issues in the world, and then you go onto Twitter, you just see conservatives freaking out and clutching their pearls over stories like this. So this is the first one that I think this is fantastic. You know, as Iran is literally, you know, destroying our military bases, wrecking our settler colony in the Middle East, shooting down our planes, damaging our aircraft carriers. You know, it's all, of course, being ignored by the mainstream media because they lie by omission. This is the type of stories that and all these are New York Post, let's be honest, you know, but the New York Post is really the voice of, like, you know, the cosmopolitan conservative, as you would say, maybe not necessarily the bread and butter, you know, rural conservatives, the Bible thumper types that have largely abandoned MAGA now that Trump started this war with Iran, which he promised not to do. This is more the cosmopolitan Republicans, the cosmopolitan right. That's how I would refer to them.
Very cosmopolitan.
New York Post here. So Trump briefed that Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, is probably gay, and president has priceless reaction. Remember how 5 minutes ago he was saying that Iran throws gay people off buildings, and now they're like mocking the supreme leader as being gay? Interesting dynamic here. Washington President Trump was stunned to learn last week that U.S. intelligence indicates new Iranian Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei may be gay, and that his father, the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, feared the suitability to rule the Islamic Republic for that reason, the Post can reveal. Trump couldn't contain his surprise and laughed aloud when he was briefed on the intel. According to sources, 5 minutes later, a round of 300 missiles struck Israel without any alarms or sirens going off. Sorry, that was a part of the article that I added. Others in the room also found it hilarious and joined the president's reaction, while one senior intelligence official has not stopped laughing about it for days, said one person familiar with the briefing. All three sources say the implausible sounding allegation is viewed as credible by U.S. spy agencies rather than false information intended to undermine Khamenei, 56, who was selected to replace his dead father as supreme leader on March 8th. That little paragraph right there basically tells you exactly what this is. It is false information intended to undermine Khamenei. They just put it right in the article for us. Thank you. Two of the sources said the intelligence indicated that Motaba, who earned the nickname the power behind the robes while serving as his aging dad's gatekeeper, has had a long-term sexual relationship with his childhood tutor. Sounds a lot like your boy Macron, doesn't it? So propaganda, of course. What is the point of this other than to, try and, like it says right here, to be false information intended to undermine Khamenei? So my response to this I thought was beautiful, and I just wanted to share this with you, was Trump is going to offer to suck his dick to open the Strait of Hormuz now. Whoa, hey-oh. So moving on in our the week in examination, our serious examination of the week in propaganda, this week in propaganda. This is the heart attack of the Republic right now. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but it's destroying families. This story is destroying families. I'm serious.
Yay!
Let's get into it. NYC First Lady Rama Dawahi deletes old X account after posts praising Palestinian terrorists resurface.
You're an anti-Semite.
Here we go. Mayor Zoran Mamdani's wife, Rama Dawahi, deactivated an old X account after a series of resurfaced posts showed her praising Palestinian terrorists, bashing Israel, and criticizing the U.S. military.
You're an anti-Semite.
She should come out and blame it on Russia. If I was her, press people, I'd be like, oh, that Russia hacked my account. Sorry. It was totally Putin that did it. And liberals would be like,
Russia
did it. No.
The Big Apple's 28-year-old first lady, who has faced backlash over her social media history the past 2 weeks, took down the account a day after the Washington Free Beacon revealed a flurry of alarming posts she made on X and Tumblr in her teens and early 20s. Jesus Christ, these people are pathetic. These people are so pathetic.
You know nothing about nothing. You're fake news.
You're an anti-Semite.
God. While her X account under the username Ramadi was deleted as of Thursday, Dawahi's public Instagram page, which has 2 million followers, remains active. You need to get a petition out there to get it shut down, conservatives. We need to make this our life's goal. Free speech conservatives getting the mayor of New York's wife's Twitter shut down because she hurt your feelings when she she liked a post in her teens. This is so fucking sad and pathetic. It's hard for me to even grasp. My brain shrinks just thinking about this whole thing and people's legitimate reactions to it as like a major scandal. The socialist mayor's wife has come under fire for her past digital activity after it emerged last week. She liked Instagram posts celebrating Hamas's deadly October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel, including one claiming that grapes carried out by the terror group. We love grapes, like California grapes make California raisins. You know how it is. Against hostages and victims were a mass hoax. Why are these people making me like this woman more than I've ever cared to like her? I don't know. I don't know why they're doing this.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
So here is the posts in question. She didn't even post these. Did she like repost them? Hey, Snapchat, show them children locked in cages overnight, burned alive in blank. This is from July 7th, 2015. So 11 years ago. And this is what conservatives are losing their minds over right now. They are just imploding with like just screaming this over and over.
You're an anti-Semite. 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 You're an anti-Semite.
And here's the real clincher, guys. Controversial posts were unearthed by the Beacon showing her inflammatory content dates back to 2013. Oh, wow. 2013. That's 13 years ago. Wow. Talking gangster with my genius, Ramadil. Yeah, man. Hell yeah. So she said the N-word with a A. Super duper genius. Excuse you. Okay. Now I have to show you the absolutely pathetic. You saw what she said. In one 2015 post, she raged that Tel Aviv shouldn't exist in the first place, calling its residents occupiers, and dropped the N-word in another post 2 years earlier. I think America is hearing this story, and America's hearing a story like this and just going, we love this woman now. Thank you. On her now inactive Tumblr, she hailed Palestinian plane hijacker Layla Khaled and members of the Popular Front of the Liberation of Palestine while reposting a tirade accusing U.S. service members of mercilessly slaughtering third world civilians to maintain American hegemony. Checks out.
You're an anti-Semite.
So, here's this is her saying the N-word. This is what they're upset about. Hell yeah, N-word, super duper genius, excuse you, when she was like 15. Oh my God. So this is the New York Post kind of headline about it, where they're obviously dramatizing it. So here's this guy's like, so let me get this straight. The wife of New York's mayor used the N-word to slur blacks and the F-word to slur gays, and it's all cool with the Democrats? Which I said, tough guy free speech Republicans when Zoran's wife tweets. Pearl clutching intensifies. But it gets better. Then you have TMZ getting in the mix. Ooh, TMZ, the pillar of morality, the pillar of Western morality, TMZ, the parasite celebrity feet suckers, butt suckers, TMZ has entered the chat. TMZ, here's an upskirt photo of Britney Spears' pussy. Also TMZ, Pearl clutching, Mumdani's wife. Oh my God, these people are pathetic.
What's your name, scumbag?
So here's I guess this guy writes for Red State, I think, one of the conservative publications. Praising literal terrorists and using the N-word gets boiled down to controversial posts when you're a communist. And I said, LOL, you cancel culture clowns sound exactly like the quote-unquote libtards.
Put a chick in it, make her gay.
They're like, oh my God, did you see the post she liked on social media? That's right-wing tough guy Republicans right now with their gun racks. That woman on social media, she liked a post. It hurt my feelings. And in our last propaganda item, there was much ado made recently about the Iranian soccer team, the women's soccer team. Like they were somehow being treated poorly by the Iranian regime or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what the issue was, but Trump tweeted about it. Australia is making a terrible humanitarian mistake by allowing the Iran national women's soccer team to be forced back to Iran, where they will most likely be killed. Don't do it, Mr. Prime Minister. Give asylum. The U.S. will take them if you won't. What a hero. However, Iranian women's soccer team received welcome home ceremony upon their return to Iran from Australia. You were all lied to about them getting arrested or killed. Complete propaganda. Which, coming from a person who, or an administration or a country who assassinates the people that are having good faith negotiations with them. I mean, what, you're going to believe their story about the Iranians women's soccer team? Yeah, I'm sure that's legit. The hell's wrong with people? It's pathetic. And that does it for our week in propaganda.
At 22:16 hours.
Let's move on to some better stuff, guys. Let's move on to some uplifting stories, which there are not a lot of in today's world. Got a couple more quick things to touch on with you today. And this first one is the tale of Afroman. Now, I want to start this piece by, I'm going to take a quick break and go fill my pipe up again because I'm running low on marijuana and coffee here. The story of Afroman begins about 3 years ago, and it's one of the issues that I actually covered back in the day about 3 years ago. So I want to start this piece by showing you a flashback piece to my episode where I covered this story. And it's not very long. It's like 3 or 4 minutes, I think, maybe 5 minutes. I'm going to skip you past all the shameless self-promo stuff that I was doing. But I want to start this story by kind of showing you the roots of it, because I covered this 3 years ago. Pat myself on the back here for covering this 4 years ago. And I like rewatching it. I really love the sentiment that I had and the way that the story ends. So enjoy for a moment. This is you're going to see my face is looking a little bit fatter, maybe a little less gray. This is an older, like I said, piece here, but I will be right back in the flesh after I play this piece for you right here. Enjoy. I was going to mow my lawn, but then I got high. You know the song. It's very popular. But a lot of people might have missed this. And interestingly enough, the reason I saw it is because of the rapper R.A. the Rugged Man. I follow him on Facebook. Good rapper if you haven't checked him out. Been around a long time, veteran. And he shared this video that Afroman did. And at the time I saw it, and I don't know how long ago this was, but I feel like it was about a year ago. Maybe it wasn't that long ago. But in this video, what had basically happened is cops had raided Afroman, and he had security camera footage of these cops going through all this stuff, and he made a song about it and used the footage of the cops like raiding him and was like clowning these cops, making fun of them as they're going through his stuff. And he even goes over the indictment. It has like kidnapping charges and drug trafficking. And so, you know, the song, you can see the video. I don't want to get copyright charges, so I'm not going to play the actual song. I'll put a link to it in the description. But it's just hilarious because he's clowning these cops as they're going through all this stuff, you know, like, hey, you know, did you find 1 million pounds of weed inside my coat pockets? You know, did you find any of the kidnapping victims in my closet? Like, what the hell is going on? You corrupt ass cops. They're clearly going through his stuff, trying to take money. And, you know, he addresses that in the song. He actually did another song recently as well called, here, I don't want to mess it up. Why You Disconnected My Video Camera. And that video is even better, where he's like, he made the video about, which is proof that it worked. You know, it's such a brilliant flipping of the script, you know, because I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary Making a Murderer, right, on Netflix. But what's messed up now is if this goes to court, the cops, you know, if you've seen that show Making a Murderer, the reason I brought this up, here's the headline: rap artist Afroman sued by officers who raided his home. And proof it worked. Proof the videos and the songs worked. And this is only going to, in my opinion, make it bigger. Hopefully, you know, go listen to the song if you haven't heard it yet. It's amazing. Watch the video. Give this guy the views and the clicks that he deserves. If he hasn't gotten them, he's gotten a lot. But so here's the article says, it's in Winchester, Ohio. 7 law enforcement officers have sued rap artist Afroman, accusing him of improperly using footage from a police raid on his Ohio home last year in his music videos. 4 deputies, 2 sergeants, and a detective with the Adams County Sheriff Office brought the suit earlier this month, claiming invasion of privacy. The chutzpah. Other law enforcement officers who were involved in the raid are not named as plaintiffs. The plaintiffs say the rapper, whose real name is Joseph Foreman, took advantage of their faces obtained by the August 2022 raid and used it in music videos and social media posts without their consent. They say that he has caused them, quote, emotional distress, embarrassment, ridicule, loss of reputation, and humiliation. No, I think you caused yourselves that. He just captured it on his videos. The plaintiffs are seeking all of Foreman's profits from his use of their personas. That includes proceeds from the songs, music videos, and live event tickets, as well as the promotion of Foreman's Afroman brand, under which he sells beer, marijuana, t-shirts, and other merchandise. They also seek a court injunction to take down all the videos and posts containing their personas. The suit names Foreman, his recording firm, and a Texas-based media distribution company as defendants. In an Instagram post made Wednesday, Foreman vowed to countersue for the undeniable damage this has had on my client's family, career, and property. Law enforcement officers were acting on a warrant that stated probable cause existed for drugs and drug paraphernalia would be found on Foreman's property and that trafficking and kidnapping had taken place there. Authorities have said those suspicions turned out to be unfounded, though, and the raid failed to turn up probative criminal evidence. No charges were ever filed. So they embarrassed themselves, and he took advantage of it, flipped the script, and now they're trying to sue him for that. So I want to watch how this case develops because it really bothers me. Like I said, and nothing against cops. I look at cops. This is my take on cops. Cops are like Muslims. You only hear about them when they do bad stuff. There's a lot of good cops doing good things every day, just like there's Muslims every day that aren't terrorists blowing things up, you know. And so I'm using that analogy just to make that comparison for people who, you know, want to call me a bootlicker or want to call me, you know, anti-cop, because I'm neither. I'm just stating facts here. And the fact is that if you watch a show like Making a Murderer, cops in that show have a very unfair advantage. They coerce a confession out of the guy's mentally handicapped cousin or nephew. They work. You can see how the prosecutors and the cops are friends. They know each other because, like I said, they see each other every day, and that's just how the system works. So these guys are obviously upset that Afroman flipped the script on them, and now they're trying to go and take all his money that he made clowning them, essentially. So this last part of the article is the real clincher. And again, the reason that I hope this case ends up being ruled in his favor. When cash seized during the raid was returned to Foreman, it appeared that hundreds of dollars were missing. A subsequent review by the State Bureau of Criminal Investigation determined that the deputies had miscounted the amount seized during the raid itself. So these cops, wow, straight up crooks. And they have no one to blame but themselves for this. I mean, if nothing turned up, where did they get these accusations? What were they acting on? Whose accusations were they at? What evidence were they acting on to warrant this raid? You know, they clowned themselves. So anyway, I thought this was a hilarious piece of news, a hilarious kind of follow up to his videos, and I really hope it gets him a lot of attention, additional attention for these videos. So there you have it. That was me 3 years ago in March of 2023, kind of laying out the whole basis, you know, the whole story. And I thought that was a good way to open this piece. So I want to show you now just some footage from the case, because as you probably know, the case, of course, did go to trial. And here is, let me get this on the stage for you. Afroman lays down facts, wrapping up his time on the stand. Afroman drops hard truths. As his time on the stand wrapped up today, Afroman decided to let the prosecution hear it. If the deputies wanted to avoid public scrutiny, they shouldn't have kicked down his door and stolen his money. I have a right to kick a can in my backyard, use my freedom of speech, turn my bad times into good times. Yes, I do. And I think I'm a sport for doing so. So here is Afroman.
Outrageous lies you tell about him, the more money you can make. And the more lies, outrageous lies you tell about them, the more money you can make, right?
Fact, they never should have came to my house in the first place. Fact, if they hadn't have came to my house, they wouldn't have put themselves on the video camera and in my music career. All of this is their fact. All of this is their fault. And they have the audacity to sue me. These people and you are the predators and the victim at the same time.
So what they did, searching your house, gave you the right to do everything you
Under the circumstance that I got freedom of speech, after they run around my house with guns and kick down my door, I got the right to kick a can in my backyard, use my freedom of speech, turn my bad times into a good time. Yes, I do. And I think I'm a sport for doing so, because I don't go to their house, kick down their doors, flip them off on their surveillance cameras, then try to play the victim and sue them.
And the more lies, outrageous lies you tell about them, the more money you can make, right?
Fact.
So this is the feel-good story of the year. And I think it's kind of like uniting left and right. It's the real America fuck yeah. One more little piece of tape for you here on this in this case. Here is, this one's a little bit longer, but we're going to check this one out. This is him on the stand.
Right to do everything you they did, searching your house, gave you the right to do everything you
Under the circumstance that I got freedom of speech, after they run around my house with guns and kick down my door, them off on their surveillance cameras, then try to play the
same office where you filmed part of that video last Friday.
Yes, sir.
Okay, hold on a sec.
Lisa Phillips's deposition, correct?
Yes, sir.
In your lawyer's office.
Yes, sir.
Same office where you filmed part of that video last Friday.
Yes, sir.
And you saw how upset she was when she was answering your lawyer's questions about how this had affected her, right?
Yes, yes,
And you saw your attorney say, do we need to take a break?
yes,
And you saw her say, no, let's go on and get this over with.
yes, sir.
You saw all that.
Yes.
You knew she was upset.
Just like she knew I was upset when she was standing in front of my kids with an AR-15 with her hand around the trigger ready to shoot me. Just like she knew I was upset when she cut my cameras. But I'm not a person, she is. So I'm sorry for being a victim. Let's talk about the predators.
Okay. So you saw all that. You saw how upset she was. You heard the testimony.
It's funny because I can almost guarantee you, just as I'm not trying to like act like I'm experienced any kind of prejudice here, but I guarantee you these cops thought, oh, this guy's some dumb stoner. He has that because I got high song. We can just roll in there and take his money and do all this shit, and there's not a goddamn thing he can do about it. That's why I get. This is why. Anyway, let me let him. I'm gonna let him finish.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish.
About her children. You heard the testimony at the depositions about Randy Newland's daughter who came home upset. You heard all that, but you're still posting stuff about
Yeah,
it.
because I understand it was Randy's fault and all of their fault for coming in my house in the first place. So if they hadn't came to my house, their children wouldn't be saying nothing. None of this would be going home if they had did their research and did things right. So all of this is their fault. And now they want to sue me for their mistake.
So what I think is so funny about this too, the best part about this going to trial is that you hear stuff like that. What that lawyer is basically saying is that the songs he made got around to where their kids were coming home and making fun of them because the kids saw the fucking videos at school and were making fun of their parents. So more than anything, all this like lawsuit did was kind of like put it out in the open that Afroman's kind of tactic of filming these assholes, corrupt asses, filming them, catching them on video, and then creatively making songs about them, and clowning them in the songs was one of the most effective ways to use, the First Amendment ever conceived in the history of the fucking country. And it's so goddamn beautiful. I said, this is the hardest thing a rapper has ever done in the history of rap music. Like, just rap is about language and using, your environment to, and writing about what your life is. Right. And so it's like, just to see this, it just makes me smile so big. And the reaction to it from people across the political spectrum was very positive. Okay, so that's it for that. Oh, hold on.
Is there anything that could change your mind about what you're doing to these deputies?
Is there anything that can change my mind about the fact that they shouldn't have been at my house in the first place? Is there anything that can change my mind about how my money shouldn't have been touched in the first place? No.
That's all the questions I have.
You're welcome.
Unrepentant for making songs that hurt the sheriff's feelings, who broke into his house and went through all his shit and found nothing, found no kidnapping or whatever they were accusing him of. So just in case you haven't seen it, this is one of the songs that he made about one of the cops they call Lemon Pancakes. Let me play a little bit.
Then I heard the glass break. They found no kidnapping victims, just some living high. Sheriff, he's hungry and he's big as hell. Sheriff, the pound cake, lemon pound cake, trending on TikTok. Lemon pound cake.
So he made this video making fun of this cop who this is from his security camera video, right? Of these fat cops like trolling through his kitchen, checking out the pound cake. It's just absolutely fucking glorious. Is it not? Is it not the most glorious thing? And of course, to wrap this up for you with a bow, the final verdict in the Afroman trial is here, right here for you. Listen closely, my friends.
It's been an emotional case. It's been a well-tried case. The lawyers did what they should do. The parties did what they should do. I just want to remind everybody that how the verdict comes out isn't something of public comment. So if you have an emotional attachment to the verdict, don't express it. Wait till you get out of the building before you let your emotions out. In all circumstances, the jury finds in favor of the defendant. No plaintiff verdict prevailed. It's been an emotional case. It's been a well-tried case.
I stepped on it.
The jury finds in favor out. In all circumstances, the jury finds in favor of the defendant. No plaintiff verdict prevailed. It's been an emotional.
In all circumstances, the jury rules in favor of the defendant, Afroman, who's defending himself from a lawsuit by cops that broke into his house, who he then made the butt of jokes in songs that went viral on YouTube and TikTok and you name it. Ice Cube, couldn't have done it better, couldn't have taken on the police, couldn't have effed the police better himself. It's just absolute fucking legend, absolute hero. A rapper who, outside of the Because I Got High song wasn't really like a rapper that I thought much about, but these cops attacking him and thinking they could just take him. Like I said, I'm sure they thought like, oh, this guy's like probably just high. We'll go raid his shit and take a bunch of his money and on some bullshit accusations. And they got caught up and served. And you'd love to see it. Congratulations to Afroman. And rumor has it he might be running for president. So who knows? We're going to have to, we might have a choice between, in the next election, we may have a choice between Afroman and Tucker Carlson. Could you imagine? I mean, gun to my head, I'm voting for Afroman. I got to say. However, Tucker Carlson has been doing some good work, along with JP Sears. I don't know if you know who JP Sears is, the redheaded dude with the ponytail who's kind of ripped up, who's always been very like MAGA guy, just like a sensible kind of conservative voice in the mix. He's been like going hard on the our good friend in the Middle East subject recently. So props to all these guys. But Tucker Carlson wins the award for this conversation that he had recently with the Economist. And I wanted to kind of set this up by, sorry about that. I forgot to show you this slide before I ended the last segment, but potentially hot take, but Afroman's victory against police corruption is more inspiring than any POC or minority story pushed on us by Hollywood in the last 60. Anyway, back to the Tucker Carlson Afroman joint ticket for president in 2028. Imagine that, if they really are both running for president. Carlson Afroman, vote Carlson Afroman. I like the way that sounds. Can you imagine the attacks would be something like this?
You're an anti-Semite.
So Tucker Carlson recently had a conversation with the absolute legends at The Economist. I have to say, the biggest byproduct of the COVID thing was the kind of revelation that most of these media outlets that I used to think were like people used to hold in high regard, like The Economist, are for people like this. Now,
Ain't that America? You and me. Ain't that America?
it's kind of hard to read with a mask over your eyes. I mean, I have a tough enough time with sunglasses on, but doing it like this, that's a lot tougher. So Tucker Carlson spoke with the editor of The Economist, and what I think is great about the time we're living in, what is beautiful about the world that we currently live in, is that the veil has kind of been lifted. I think the Epstein files, and I've said this repeatedly, more than anything, just laid bare the collusion of the two-party system and how they all, like Noam Chomsky and fucking Howard Lutnick, are in there side by side. So it just kind of like really just pulled the lucha libre mask off of the WWE act that is American politics, or just like global politics, really. Like there's a lot of British politicians implicated as well. And so when you see people now like this woman from The Economist, they're still attempting to wrestle with that reality, right? So they look really dumb because they're trying to still live in a world where that veil exists and no one knows that what they're doing. And it's so evident in the conversation with this lady right here. And this is why people like Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan and Candace Owens are so beloved, because they're not afraid to cut through the bullshit, and it comes off as authentic, whether you believe it's authentic or not. A lot of people are like, Tucker Carlson is a secret op by the CIA. Maybe he is. I mean, he's obviously pretty close with the Trump admin. He's the guy who laundered the Joe Kent thing right off the bat. Like let's use Israel as what was the term that Berlitic used? Disposable proxy. I like that term. Anyway, regardless of what Tucker Carlson's kind of, underlying motives are, or that you believe his underlying motives are, this is good work right here, what I'm about to show you. And the reason, again, that it is good work is because, like I said, the veil has been lifted, and it's just interesting. It's fun. It's interesting. I need to get that Gavin Newsom sample that it's just interesting that Jimmy has. It's just interesting. But point again being, it's fun to watch these people try to kind of intellectually navigate, what's the word? Dodge, intellectually, I don't know, basically intellectually squirm to get around the reality of what they're being approached with. So listen to this. This is actually a really good clip, courtesy of your boys at Drop Site. And here we go.
You are critical of the government of Israel. Do you believe in Israel's right to exist? Would you consider yourself a Zionist in that narrow definition?
What does that mean, a right to exist?
The existence of the political state of Israel as
but
it
has
existed,
a right. What does that mean?
That you think it should continue in its existence as a state right now. So you do not agree with Iran, for example.
Well, let me just ask, since you asked me the question, it's fair for me to get you to define the term so I can answer it. You've asked two questions. The first was, do you believe Israel has a right to exist? And the second question was, do you believe Israel should continue to go on as a nation state? And those are very different questions. So I often hear the phrase,
having been created as a political entity in 1948,
does it have a right to exist? Is that what you're asking?
I don't want to get hung up on the right.
No.
Should it continue to exist? That's how I define narrowly Zionism.
Because the phrase you used was devised by the Israeli government. Of course, does it have a right to exist? And so my question to you would be, what does that mean?
Why don't you answer my question? It's a very simple question.
I don't know what your question is. Are you asking, does it have a right to exist, or do I want it to exist? Do I seek its destruction?
Fine, answer it that way.
Well, of course I don't seek its destruction. I've already said, as you know, because I said it to you, I don't want Israel to be destroyed or have to use nuclear weapons.
We've established that you are in that narrow terms of Zionist. If that's how
I'm in no sense a Zionist. I don't want any country to be destroyed at all. And I don't want people to die, particularly ones who committed no crime, because I don't believe in killing innocents, period. That's the basis of Western civilization. Eastern civilizations, it's a whole different view. They believe in collective punishment. I don't.
So it's interesting, again, to watch these people attempt to conflate Zionism with like not wanting Israel to be allowed to exist. And, you know, obviously at this point, I think a lot of people are like, fucking Israel should. I think the people's general feelings on the subject are pretty visible at this point. I think it does definitely boil to the surface, but the whole right to exist thing is where just the way that it's worded, you can tell that they're trying to make it this thing where they can criminalize it, because they can say, oh, if you're not a Zionist, or if you're, you know, say you're anti-Zionist, then you're against Israel's right to exist as a state. And Tucker does a great job of going like, okay, does the US have a right to exist? What does that even mean, really? Of course they have a right to exist if they're there and they have an established society. Yeah. I mean, what, like, however, in the case of a country like this, there's a lot more to it than that, because there's a history there where they established their society on top of an existing society. And that existing society was even willing to be conciliatory to a degree and work with them. But it got to the point where the big bad US and their friends have been the problem for so long. And it's not even, you know, I'm not going to get off on that sidebar, but I'm going to let Tucker finish.
But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Don't.
So you're in no sense a Zionist.
I don't even know what that means. Why don't you define the term, and then I'll tell you whether I am.
I've just defined it. And
What's
you
a
said
Zionist?
that a Zionist, in my narrow term, this definition is that the state of Israel, the political state of Israel, has the right to continue existing.
The right? Where does that right come from? What do you mean? These are like, I'm not being a lawyer about it. I just want to know what you're asking me.
to answer the question.
Because I don't know what you're asking me.
Let's go to the
Wait,
third.
no. I think you don't want to define your question, and I don't know why. I don't know what you're asking me. I've already said I don't want Israel to be destroyed. I don't want anyone to be killed. And you've said, does Israel have a right to exist? Does it have
I think too, it's interesting. The more I think about this question and the more I think about the framing of that is, does it have a right to exist as an ethno-supremacist state? Because the core values of the United States, what I was always taught in my good government bullshit history class, is that why we're awesome is because we don't cater to any one religion. You know, there's a lot of people say we're a Christian nation. No, we're not. The founding fathers very specifically said we are not a Christian nation. We're a nation of laws and, you know, elected representatives. We're, you know, republic, whatever you want to call it. But it's very clear. And the founding fathers, to their credit, were very clear. They left European religious persecution by a government that was theocratic in nature and established the United States as a secular government for that reason. So the right to exist thing is basically trying to get people's consent to exist as an ethno-supremacist state. And the United States would never exist as that. We would not be great if we were a white Christian nation, as people want to say that, you know, it's like there's these white nationalist view. I think most white nationalists now, I think that term has been demonized. Nationalist in general has been demonized. Someone who cares about their country and its sovereignty is a nationalist. So you tack white onto it and it sounds like a Nazi. What about black nationalists? What about Latino nationalists? What about, you know, Asian nationalists? There are plenty of black, Latino, and Asian American citizens. So, you know, anyway, back to Tucker and his battle against the consent of Israel's right to exist.
My question is, what right are you talking about? Does Britain have a right to exist? Does the United States have a right to exist?
There was a world order built up after 1945, which suggested that aggression should not be condoned into countries. Now that countries with borders have the right to intervene.
I totally agree with that.
Okay.
If that's
and we're doing that to Iran right now, and we did that to Russia through a proxy in Ukraine, and we just did it to Venezuela. We have no moral high ground. The United States, Europe doesn't really have any either. They're old school colonial. We're new school colonial.
which is why the first thing that Israel did within 2 weeks of this war starting, which is supposedly existential for them, was take southern Lebanon, take someone else's country, as they have done repeatedly. And no one even mentions that. And so I guess I would be opposed to that, because I guess I think Lebanon has a right to exist. I thought Gaza had a right to exist. But I noticed that as soon as we started portioning rights, only one country gets them.
No, I did not say that. You're absolutely putting words into my mouth.
I believe,
No.
here's what I do believe, since you asked. I believe in universally applicable standards. And if they're not universally applicable, they're not standards, they're preferences. That's why I believe in human rights, not ethnic rights. I don't think Jews have more rights or less rights than anyone else. I don't think Christians have more rights or less rights, blacks, Filipinos. I believe in human rights that derive from the creation of people by God.
There you go. A nice way to end today's show. A nice thought to end today's show on consistency, accountability, moral consistency. Again, the idea that the United States still has the moral authority to go out in the world and spread democracy is just patently ridiculous. We have no moral authority whatsoever, especially when we murder good faith negotiators and we bomb schools full of children at the outset of a war that we started. And so, I've about hit my 2-hour rant mark, but I just want to say thank you to y'all for listening to me on my soapbox, and thank you for just being conscious individuals and recognizing that we're all in this together. I think that's the biggest thing that that a lot of people miss in today's world, because social media can isolate you and put you in a bucket and kind of like build a wall around you if you let it. Not to get, I'm getting off on a whole tangent sidebar here, but it's interesting. Like, if you remember that movie, The Social Dilemma, and I kind of want to look this up real quick and see if I can, there's a whole bit in that movie where this kid gets radicalized by YouTube. And the democracy dilemma. Anyway, I won't do that. I won't get into that right now. But basically, the kid gets radicalized by YouTube. It's kind of like a dire warning against social media, because it's gonna like get in your head and like make you go out into the world and like do crazy Nazi stuff. Basically, is kind of the gist that they're trying to convey. And it made me think about how that totally explains Renee Good, who was murdered by ICE agents. Like, she got so wrapped up in the narrative that was being fed to her in social media that she went out and put her life at risk. And, do I think it was right that she was murdered? No, not at all. Of course not. I don't think it's ever okay for the state to murder someone without a trial and some kind of a fair judicial process. So anyway, the point I was getting to with all that kind of stuff is that I think social media can really warp your brain in a way that television and film propaganda never had the power to before, because in addition to now you have the power of AI and the power of imagery being served to you like instantaneously. But what a lot of people don't realize is the intense amount of targeting behind digital advertising, digital social media, and all that stuff. When you agree to go on these apps, you're essentially giving your phone the right to track you and listen to you when you're not using it, when you're sleeping, track your body, track your pulse. That like there's health shit in the app that can tell you different stuff. So a lot of these T's and C's when you sign on to use an app like TikTok or Twitter, and I'm guilty of it. Like I'm totally part of this problem and are part of the data, gold mine that these companies rely on. But for that reason, the propaganda is a lot more intense and a lot more targeted. So they know how to manipulate you emotionally in ways that were just never possible with television, where like the ratings for television, and this was a big part of my job in digital advertising, was ratings audience measurement and stuff like that. So I worked with Nielsen, and the difference between, television rating systems like Nielsen, where it's total guesswork, even television ads, versus digital, where you can track literally everything now. Especially back when I was doing it, it was literally just like cookies in a browser on an internet, mostly computers. Phones hadn't, like, this was 2005, 2006, that era before the iPhone and the smartphone had really taken off. So now, just all the stuff I was doing back in those years, like 20 years later, with the evolution of smartphones and a computer in your pocket that traces everything you do and listens to you constantly and stores that data, it's unbelievable. So anyway, I appreciate you jumping on and listening to me, and I encourage you to get out into the world and talk to people face to face, even if you don't drink, because it will give you some hope for humanity. I think that people, you want, it's easy to get on social media or get in, watch the news and just think, wow, humanity is doomed. And I think if you get out into the world a little bit and check in with people, you might have a little bit of a different perspective. So let's go to the comments real quick. Oh, my boy Truth is here. You're the only guy in the comments today, my friend. Who wrote the policy paper? Brian Berlitic. Who wrote the policy papers and put them in or were they more? Oh, see, I've always been apprehensive about Berlitic, Truth, man. Like I never, because he's former military. So this is a good debate to have, because I don't know. I've always seen it as the ethno-supremacist friend in the Middle East kind of pulling the reins. I've made memes, if you follow me on Twitter, where there's like a lady leading a guy on a leash, and it says like Israel is the lady with the leash and USA is the guy on the leash, that the lady's like the sub that the lady's pulling. I've always viewed it that way, but it was interesting to hear Berlitic, because he did quote, actually, watch that interview, Truth. It's with Glenn Deason. It's pretty recent. I think it was dropped like today or yesterday. But watch that interview, because he quotes the paper. So it would be interesting. In fact, I'm going to have to do this, to go look at the paper. Like, I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but because I just pulled that clip. But it'd be interesting to see who wrote the paper and like who's behind that paper, because it's basically about, Israel being a disposable proxy for the US to use to, do bad shit in the Middle East. And I've always been suspicious of Brian Berlitic. There's just something about that dude that I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But you got to be skeptical of everyone. He's probably a really good dude, and he does a lot of shit on that. Let's see. Even though it says no power, no money, walls in the books, no clout, Wall Street, yeah. Bro, I got red pilled, radicalized by they too. What's they too? I think I might be missing something on that. Social media is the problem. Lack of critical thinking, skeptic. Yeah, I mean, by the same token, I think it's an interesting dynamic, because there is a lot of stupidity, but there's also a lot of intelligence and a lot of community and a lot of kind of collective, I guess, like you look at like Candace Owens, for example, right? It's like what she's doing wouldn't be possible without an audience that's kind of interacting with her and bringing data to the table. It's like the new ecosystem, right? With streaming, it's like a two-way conversation rather than television, where you're just watching someone passively. You can't actively participate in the dialogue. That's kind of what's so beautiful about the podcasting world and the whole fucking streaming thing, is it's like it's instant. There's instant feedback. It's like comedy, I think that's one of the reasons Rogan, before I shut down here, Rogan was talking with, Mark Normand, and it was interesting. They were talking about how like comedy is like more popular than ever, and there's more comedy than ever because of podcasts, and because people realize like you can listen to a comedian's podcast, like Tim Dillon, for example, who's just a funny dude in general, and can just freestyle. I'm sure he writes down some of his talking points before he goes on the air, but like he can just freestyle and be funny off the cuff. where someone like Stephen Colbert, a talk show host, like in the old school sense, cannot. He needs his writers. He's an actor. The great Kurt Metzger may have been the one who pointed this out, but like Colbert is basically like a theater kid who needs that like backing. It's an interesting dynamic too, because I think it was Ian Carroll who was making this point about P. Diddy. Maybe it was, it might've been Matty Balls. One of those YouTubers that I watch. Matty Balls also does great fucking content, but basically they were talking about how, industry plants, right? So there's like people who are legitimately talented in the music industry or in comedy, for example, like Michael Jackson, right? Legitimate talent, like from day one, Jackson 5, like talented naturally since he was a kid. And a guy like Michael Jackson is powerful because he doesn't need the industry. Whereas a lot of these like famous people that get put in front of us nowadays, they're not like talented on their own. They're a product of like writers, producers, studio musicians, live musicians that kind of back them in a live setting. Sabrina Carpenter, maybe a good example of that, whatever. Sabrina Carpenter's got some good songs. I'm just focusing on her as one of the more recent, like there's a bunch of them, Tate McRae, or, I see all these like kind of products. So, and some of them have great songs. that's not even up for debate. My point is that when you take a Tate McRae from obscurity and give her the power of songwriters and a label and all that, she's dependent on you to remain a celebrity. So she's much more easy to manipulate and control than someone like Michael Jackson, who's just a naturally talented dude who can write and record with anyone, do anything on his own. That guy doesn't need your label. He can go to the, he can go off on his own. And like, you see this dynamic happening now with rock bands, like bands like Metallica and Tool. Now they've fulfilled their contractual obligations to their labels. And because of the way that that recording has become cheaper and easier to be done at home and digitally, remotely and stuff. And like these bands can all like, now they have full control of their music and their image. And like Metallica is their own company essentially, which is so fucking awesome that a band like that who started out as a bunch of drunk, angry metalheads in a garage are now like a fucking global business that they built on their own terms. Say what you want about their era when they sold out in the 90s. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I didn't mean to go off on a Metallica tangent here, but I'm doing it. But Metallica, I wasn't a fan of the Load era. I was one of those people who got into Metallica probably during the Justice for All era, which even to OG Metallica fans was like a sellout move because they made a video for that record with the song One. And so when they kind of went to the Black album, of course I loved that record. How can you not love that record? It's just a great rock album. And then they fully like turned into the grunge thing with Load. And I always hated them for that. But like in retrospect now, I'm like, man, fucking brilliant move of them, because look what happened to all the other bands of that like era. Like all the glam bands that were like the pop thing, like Poison and Guns N' Roses and shit, they kind of fell off. And Metallica kind of like, they manipulated their image and a lot of their original fan base was pissed off about it. But they still made some kind of banger songs in that era, even though they were more radio formatted and they cut their hair and they kind of like went more like alternative for marketing purposes. But they sailed kind of smoothly through that fucking turbulence and then came back as a like full-fledged thrash band again with records like Death Magnetic and what was the one they did? There's another one in there. I forget what, Hardwired Self-Destruct. Those are like pretty solid fucking metal records. So anyway, but now they can fucking put out their own records. Same with Tool. Like Tool's completed their contractual obligations with their label. That's why it takes them 10 years now to put a record out, because Maynard has 8 million side projects and fucking the other guys are like have families and are complete like perfectionist nerds, which makes for great music, Anyway, you get the idea. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for listening to me rant. Thank you for listening to the rantings. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. I've been trying desperately to grow my channel. I've been publishing a lot more videos lately. I need to get the fucking shorts happening, which I will. And man, thank you, absolutely, my friend. Thank you for being here every week and humoring me. And yeah, if you see something that I missed or something I got wrong, please don't hesitate to hit me up in the comments. And what should we take you guys out with today? What do I want to bless you guys with today as far as something funny to watch goes? Maybe I'll go back to my Bernie Sanders AOC scandal clip. That might be a good one. I don't know. Let me see what I got in the bag today that's worth pulling out for you guys. What do we have here? What have we got here in our secret bag of reusable clips? Trump is pro-choice. What is this? I don't know what this is, but it's... No, maybe not. No, that's a whole different thing. I don't want to play that. What did we do last week? We did bombing in the free world. Crypt Keeper. Oh, let's play this. This is great. This isn't actually that funny. This is an AI video. I need to use this more often. This is great shit where they replace the word democracy with bureaucracy. Anyway, thank you again. Mad love to y'all, and hit me in the comments, like and subscribe, all that shit. Help me get to the 1,000 mark. I'm almost to 700 subs now. If I can get to the 1,000 mark, I might even. I said I would start doing broadcasts without the sunglasses but it just makes life. Anyway, I'm gonna shut the fuck up. Watch this clip. Have a great Sunday, and we'll see you next week.
Democrats fail, it might be the end of American bureaucracy.
Our bureaucracy really is in fundamental peril.
The foundations of American bureaucracy under attack. They want to destroy our bureaucracy.
We are a bureaucracy in danger. We're watching an election where people are on the ballot openly advocating the end of bureaucracy.
That's what Republicans are doing, attacking bureaucracy, attempting to destroy bureaucracy, and they're doing it with glee.
This is the end of bureaucracy in America.
When will America stop sleepwalking towards the end of bureaucracy?
Right. It's Democrats versus, as Bill Kristol says, the end of bureaucracy.
We are essentially, as Neil put it, one vote away from sort of the end of bureaucracy as we know it.
I think our bureaucracy and the stability of that bureaucracy is really the thing on the ballot and really so important.